Welcome to the Coffee with Karen podcast, a weekly chat show discussing everything from holistic health to current affairs from a mental, physical and spiritual perspective. Get your weekly cup of positivity with a sprinkling of woo-woo.
And we are live. So welcome to today's A Coffee with Karen, a cup of positivity with just a sprinkling of woo-woo. So regularly my guests tend to be in the holistic health arena in some way or other, whether that's from the mental, the physical or spiritual perspective, or any combination really of those three. I'm your host, Karen Roberts. I suppose in a way, I would consider myself a holistic transformation coach. I do cover or aim to cover the mental, the physical and the spiritual with my little bit of where woo-woo meets science, sending out frequencies. I help health practitioners, coaches actually grow their business on social media without being salesy or weird. Although I'm very weird, so I don't know what that's about. Anyway, today's topic, we're going to be talking about homeopathy, something that I'm very fortunate that I've actually been brought up with. I'm coming from Tunbridge Wells, where you always had there was always the homeopathic hospital there. So my mum did sort of opt for those that way of treating us before actually going to Western medicine. So my guest, Neela, if you can share with the listeners a little bit about who you are, what you do, and share a bit of your story.
Yeah, hi Karen. Really nice to be here. Thank you. So yeah, my name's Neela and I'm a homeopath. So most people, so that's 98% of people in this country don't know what homeopathy is, let alone what it can do. So homeopathy is a holistic alternative form of medicine. It's a complete medicine system which treats mental, emotional and physical issues. And it's an energy medicine. So it's more similar to acupuncture or Reiki. So you can use it on newborn babies all the way through to the elderly, animals and plants. So yeah, that's about homeopathy. But my background is I used to be a community pharmacist for almost 20 years. So I then had a career change and I'm now a homeopath. So a lot of people find that quite surprising.
Yes, I mean, that's such a huge shift, although it's not the first time I've heard it. So can you share, how did that all come about? What made that happen?
Yeah, I mean, it took me far too long to realise that I was sleepwalking through my career. And an opportunity came up to be a pharmacist in a GP practice. So I would be running, asthma clinics or blood pressure clinics or that sort of thing, and actually sitting down and talking to people rather than just being a checking machine and, checking, 200, 250 items a day and spending, less than 30 seconds with a client. So I thought, this is good. Unfortunately, because I live in the borough of Croydon, that dark, shadowy place, Simba. They didn't do very well with the bid, is probably the politest way of putting it. So, but it did highlight to me that I thought, well, actually, this was like a tube light moment, kind of, I don't want to do this anymore. I can't do that because of what's happened with the money and that sort of thing. So now what? That was a kind of a real kind of a crossroads really for me. I was like, right, I don't want to do this, but what do I want to do? So I still am a homeopathic patient. I have been for about 12 years, as are both my girls. So my homeopath would sort of suggested, you could be a homeopath. And I was like, maybe. So I, did my pros and cons list as, anyone does. And I showed my sister who, she runs her own business too. And I had like 12 or 13 pros and like 3 cons or 2 cons or whatever. And she was like, well, you can't have those cons. And I was like, what do you mean I can't have them? She said, well, anyone running a business has those cons. I'm like, oh, all right, guess I'm doing this then. So the course was an online course with once a month kind of student clinics that I had to travel to North London to do. And I absolutely loved the studying. My inner geek re-emerged, with highlighters and organized and files and all of this. So I packed, was lucky enough to send the children off to school, and I just studied like a demon when they were at school, and I finished the 12-month course in about 11 months. So, and a lot of it just sat so well with me. So yeah, I just absolutely loved it. And as any homeopath will say, it's lifelong learning. It doesn't stop. It doesn't stop there. There's always more to learn. So yeah.
So for the listeners out there that don't really know too much about homeopathy, and to be fair, it's really been dissed in the last 20, 30 years. They've tried to,
bit more than that. Keep going. Fair
enough. They've tried to debunk it. So can you explain so probably a lot of people don't really understand anything, about homeopathy. So could you share a little bit about sort of the background and exactly what it is? Yeah.
So the most common questions I get asked are, how does it work? Because people don't really understand what it's all about. If you were to tell someone you're a massage therapist, they wouldn't ask you what is massage. They might ask you, what oils do you use, or do you do Indian head massage? Can you come to my house? This sort of thing. But they wouldn't ask you what is massage. So homeopathy itself, as I said before, is an energy medicine. So it's a bit like sending a little energetic email to the body. So the main principle of homeopathy is like cures like. So we would use something that, for example, belladonna, which is deadly nightshade, all those sexy Botticelli chicks were using that to make their pupils dilate and therefore appear, in love. And then Botticelli would paint them and all this sort of thing. Okay. Unfortunately, the ingredient in belladonna that makes your eyes dilate and also causes facial flushing and a fever and then ultimately death, because beauty is death, is atropine. Okay, so there's atropine alkaloids in there, which it's toxic. That's why it's called deadly nightshade. If you eat a little bit, you'll get, your face will be flushed, your pupils will dilate, and you'll feel hot and you'll have a fever. If you keep going, then yes, it's a poison. It's going to kill you. Samuel Hahnemann was the founding father of homeopathy. He was a German doctor, and he wasn't keen on the current medical treatments at the time, things like leeches and bloodletting and horrible things like that. Really not nice things for the patient. So he decided that one of the main things was, well, if something causes a fever, could we use it to treat the fever? So a bit like, hair of the dog type thing for alcohol, kind of like that. But he said, well, the dose makes the poison. So if you've got one berry of, the deadly nightshade berries around and a black color, how low a dose can we go and still have an effect on the body? And that's where he started doing serial dilution. So you would get, your one berry of, your deadly nightshade, mush it up with some water and alcohol, take one drop of that mother tincture and put it into 99 drops of water and then bang it on the table. You then take one drop of that liquid, put it into 99 drops of water, bang it on the table, and so on. You do that 6 times and you get a 6C potency. The C stands for centennial because it's been diluted by a factor of 100. Okay. So when you look at a homeopathic remedy and it says 6C or 30C, that's what that means. Okay. However, when you go past 6C to the high, well, kind of around the 6C or 30C or higher, there's no original molecules of the mother tincture left. Okay, you've gone past Avogadro's constant. So the scientists, quote unquote, go, oh, there's none of it left. You've super diluted it. Yes, because we're not working on a physical level. We've diluted it into the energetic level. There have been studies done to show that water has memory. We've all seen Frozen 2. Olaf said it. It must be true. They have done studies. It's a nanotechnology that basically the banging on the table causes vibrations in the water molecules and they retain that memory. Okay. But because we've diluted out of the physical, you're not then going to get the side effects or the not nice effects of having the facial flushing, the fever and death, side effect, death of the belladonna. So it's one of our main remedies for treating a fever when they are, their body is doing a fever to fight off a bug, an infection, that sort of thing. the body is naturally raising the temperature, but you can give the belladonna to that person to very gently help them to bring that fever down and to their body to manage what's going on. So yeah, I hope that explains a bit.
It just makes so much sense because everything is down to dosage. Just like if you took, you know, this is why they actually only give you, isn't it, 1 box of paracetamol. I don't actually understand that.
That's not the reason. You used to be able to buy bottles of 100. The reason they reduced it down to 1 box of 32, or if you ask the pharmacist nicely, up to 3, is because people were using it to commit suicide, that sort of thing. Yeah. So they changed the law. However, if someone is really that determined, they will just go from shop to shop. So it just made our pharmacist life a hell of a lot more complicated.
Crazy because too many paracetamol will kill, whereas 2 will solve a headache. Just like with this, it is down to the dosage, which I suppose was why when I was pregnant, you know, I was taking the 200, which is actually so diluted even more as the memory.
It is. Well, yeah. So in terms of it, in homeopathic terms, the more dilute it is, we perceive that to be a higher potency.
Powerful, yeah.
Exactly. So the 6C I would use as an organ support. It's very low and slow. 30C is generally a good one for your minor ailments. I've got a splinter, I've got a sore throat, I've got a headache, you know, I've got a gungy eye, those sorts of things. The 200 I use 200C quite a lot. It's one of my favorite potencies in terms of it's like a 30C. It's just got a bit more kick. Okay. Yeah. It's just a little bit more kick. So therefore you need to use it less frequently. Yeah. And once you start to go to the 1M and beyond, so obviously it's Roman numerals. So 1M is 1,000.
I didn't know there was a stronger.
Oh yes. There's you can go like 1M, 50M, 1000M. It's you can whatever you want. All of the 6, 30 and 200s are very much more physical issues. I wouldn't necessarily use them for mental emotional issues. From a 1M upwards are more mental emotional and vice versa. I wouldn't use those necessarily for a physical issue.
Right. Interesting. Wow. Yeah. So I can remember, I can't remember which ones, but I had an emergency cesarean. So I had quite a lot of different things. But the 200, so more powerful, but also more diluted. So in some people's heads, that's it. It's the opposite. But you know, like we say, you know, anybody knows that it's a law of physics, isn't it? That like energy attracts like energy. You know, even in the quantum world.
Einstein said that energy cannot be created or destroyed. And I've had a lot of people say to me about they've got an old homeopathic kit and they're like, oh, but it's out of date. And I said, well, this is what Einstein said. And I said, my kit that I've been using since I was pregnant, so 14 years ago, my daughter's 13, my eldest. Yes, it's gone beyond the expiry date and they have to put that on there for, you know, obviously legal reasons and that sort of thing. But basically, they have found remedies from Hahnemann's time, so over 200 years ago, that have been stored correctly. Okay, they've then used them and they've worked.
Wow.
So I know it's just stunning. Yeah.
Where do you think this sort of distrust with homeopathy comes from the Western medicine arena, as it were?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, when I said at the beginning that 98% of people don't know about homeopathy in this country, let alone what it can do, the contrast to that in Europe and especially in India. So my parents were both born in India, as were my husband's. It's the number one system of medicine out there. I mean, they use it for really, you know, things that I would feel quite scared to treat. So things like brain tumors, contraception, you know, stuff like this. And I'm like, whoa, okay, that's a little bit too high for me. I'm like, oh, we're not going to do that. But they do. And there's a clinic in Calcutta that sees 3,600 patients a day. Okay, not the same homeopath. They would be dead. A team of homeopaths. So in my head, it's like, well, why are all these people going back if it doesn't work? You know? And I think to answer your question, very much in the West, we are told that, you know, conventional medicine is the way to go. It's quicker, it saves lives, blah, blah, blah. We're very lucky to have the NHS because it's free, quote unquote. It's not free, but it's a whole different 3-hour conversation. All of that. And yes, absolutely. I would say, and this is why it's called complementary medicine, that if you've been run over by a bus or you're having a heart attack, I'm going to be the first one calling 999. Off you go in an ambulance. Might give you some remedies to go with you, but we'll just pick up the pieces afterwards. And the NHS is really, really good at doing emergencies. Okay, I used to work for them. I know that. What I don't think they're so good at is the maintenance side. And one of my patients put this more eloquently than me, that it's what they do is compartmentalize medicine. And I don't do that. I do holistic in the truest sense of the word. I know it's bandied about a lot, but to me, we are one person. We are mind, body, and spirit. We're not RoboCop. You can't just take your arm off and replace it with another arm. Or I'm going to go to the ENT department today, but tomorrow I'm going to the cardiology department. And then next week I'm going to the dermatology department. And none of those departments speak to each other, and they don't speak to you or your GP. So you're standing in the middle going, what? Quite a lot of my clients come to me and say, I've got this issue and I've got this issue and I've got this issue. So, what they perceive are 3 separate issues. And they say, oh, well, they might be related. I'm not sure. I said, of course they're related. You just don't know how. If you are, you've got all your body parts, you're alive, you're breathing, it is linked. We are one person. You can't separate these things as much as conventional medicine, tries. And I understand why. Doctors have been trained to diagnose and then to prescribe a pharmaceutical product to then deal with the symptoms. And therein lies the problem of polypharmacy, which is, oh, I've gone to the doctor because I've got a bad back, so they'll give me some cocodamol. The codeine then constipates you. They then give you some lactulose, which means you're going to the toilet, but you're then dehydrated, so you get a urinary tract infection. So they give you some antibiotics, and you're standing there with 5 tablets going, well, no one's asked me why my back was hurting in the first place.
Yeah.
And I've seen this with my own eyes, that's all I was doing was handing out more and more tablets to cover the side effects of something else, or, well, this has happened because of this. And it's like no one's getting to that root cause. We're all just putting a sticky plaster on a broken leg and going, yep, it's all good. It's not good.
I suppose they don't. The trouble is they don't have a lot of time either, and it seems to be you're only allowed to go for one ailment. That's what sort of people...
which and I'm not doctor bashing at all. I can 100% see it from their side. They have 7 minutes with each client as an average time. I mean, that's nothing. You probably spend more time talking to the mums at the school gate with that. It's really unfair. They've also been given the purse strings for their surgeries. So what doctor trained to be an accountant? They didn't. They've got to consider, I'm talking more about GPs rather than, specialists, but they've got to, make sure that they pick up on something more sinister, because if it isn't picked up then, something could happen further down the line, and they've got to do all this reading and keep up to date. And they are also human. They have children, they have families, they may have an elderly relative they're caring for. It's really hard for them. So, and I think it is the system rather than the people who work in the NHS. I truly believe people who work in the NHS are doing a very hard job because they're not being paid enough for it. They're doing 2 or 3 people's jobs. And when was the last time they had a wee and actually had something to eat? It's really clear in midwifery that you'll get me going off all the several bees that are in my bonnet, Karen. But you've got 1 midwife for 10 labouring women. How is that fair on any of those people? No. It's not. Midwife is on a 12-hour shift. She's trying to do her best for those women, but equally, has she had a wee? Has she had a break? Has she had something to eat herself? And then she's then trying to attend to 10 women. That's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And then she's got to do all the paperwork and write it all up and all of that to it's just mad.
Too much.
Completely
so
mad.
And as you say, it's like I see it as an emergency service, but then the long-term issues can be dealt with by now let's look at the whole person. And that's what homeopathy, you've got time to actually then sit down and go through a complete and I think a consultation, absolutely. And so my minimum time is an hour,
And I have a lot of my clients say, oh, it's like a therapy session. I said, but I'm not a therapist. But I think the reason for that is you've got that dedicated time to you. You're not someone's sister, you're not someone's mum, you're not someone's granddaughter, you're just you. And that person is genuinely interested in what's happening with your periods, what's happening with your bowels, how is your sleep, this sort of thing. The other side of it is it's teaching patients or clients to take responsibility for their own health. We're not handing over that responsibility to, oh my God, I'm ill, I must go to the doctor, I must go to the pharmacist. Do you? Or do you need to just tune into what you need? If you've had a busy week and you think, actually, oh, I need to do some self-care, brilliant. But is that self-care painting your nails, or is it going, actually, I'm not going to have that glass of wine and I'm not going to watch that movie and I'm going to go to bed early because that's going to make me feel better tomorrow? Or I'm going to try and have a healthier breakfast for a week and see how my bowels are. To me, that's self-care. Or I'm going to say no to going out with that particular friend because actually I come away from it feeling not great and this sort of thing. Those are the bits where actually, we're led to believe that self-care is, it's all paint your nails and bubble baths and, do some, that sort of thing. But actually it isn't. It's listening to your body and saying, right, what does my body need? And I'm 100% guilty of this as well. This week has been really busy. I know that I need some early nights. I know that I need to, hydrate, etc. Wow. So it's listening to your body, paying attention. It's giving us messages all the time. And I had a client just now before we jumped on the call, and it's what I call the newborn baby analogy. Okay. When we have a newborn baby, they cry. Okay. We don't know what's wrong with them as a parent or an adult. You're going, oh, it's crying. What do I do? We have to figure out that it's either got a wet nappy, or it's hungry, or it's tired, or it's bored, whatever that is, we have to figure that out. And we do. And that's exactly what I'm doing with your body. All these signs and symptoms, the body doesn't do them for no reason. There is always a reason.
Seems to have happened is we've come away, we've become a little bit disconnected with our own bodies, and we've seemed to have, for some reason, I don't know how it's happened, that we've totally been conditioned in a way to just totally give your power away to somebody in a white coat, as opposed to understanding your own body and understanding, at the end of the day, no one knows your body better than you, and actually more intuitively. But we've somehow been conditioned to not trust that intuition, and we've become disconnected, haven't we?
Yeah, absolutely. And yes, if you look back to medieval times, there was always an apothecary or a medical woman, or that sort of the witch, or whatever you want to call her. And yes, there was a lot of there was a lot of charlatans as well, the snake oil sellers and this sort of thing. And I think from that, yes, we've learned a lot with conventional medicine, and yes, it has saved a lot of lives. But I think we're at a tipping point now where actually people are realizing that conventional medicine, as any system of medicine, has its limitations. And the way I describe this is like a toolbox. Okay. If all you've got is a hammer, everything starts to look like a nail, and equally, it's true. Equally, you go to the doctor for your backache. We're back to the person with a backache, and you've tried all the painkillers or the treatments, and you get to the end of that toolbox or their list of things they can give you, and you say, I'm not happy, or the side effects are terrible. And the doctor shrugs their shoulders and goes, well, that's it. And the person goes, well, this can't be my life. There has to be something more. And that's when people start going to look for non-conventional medicines or alternative complementary medicine, because they think this is ridiculous. The doctor might go, oh, I've given you some tramadol. How's your backache? Well, it's gone. Brilliant. Tick the box. You're done. Bye. Hang on a minute. I'm asleep all day. I've got young children and an elderly relative to look after. That's not a solution for me. If I don't take the painkillers, I'm in pain. If I do take them, I'm asleep. That's not a life,
So you need to be realigned. I mean, it's just that if everybody came together, it seems to be all these different pockets of modalities for treating the whole body. And it just seems such a shame that everybody can't just come together in the long term. Yeah, maybe for just this week, because you are in so much pain, let's give you some pain relief so you can get some sleep. However, look at the longer term, fixing, solving the problem. Do you see this changing in the?
I do actually, because, you know, certainly with my clients, and I offer a free half an hour chat with people because I want to make sure that I'm the right person for them and they're the right person for me. And I have had people who've come to me and I've said, yeah, I could give you remedies, but actually you need to see a counsellor, or you need to see an osteopath, or you need to see an acupuncturist, because I have used all those modalities myself. Most other, you know, alternative practitioners, they do have more strings to their bow. So I'm a back flower level 2 practitioner, so I use the back flower remedies because I have the whole set. But again, I use it as a tool. I don't use it as, you know, I'm going to add this to all of my clients and get an extra bit of money every month. It's a tool to be used. All of the things I use are tools. They're not the be all and end all. And you're right. I think that if we, as I say, I'm happy to refer to other alternative practitioners as they are to me. It's just getting that information out there, and then it's up to the person to decide. And the proof is in the pudding. You know, I've had quite a few clients now. The testimonials and the case studies are on my website, where they've come to me. They've not had great success with conventional medicine. They've come to the end of their tether. They've come to me. I've sorted the problem and I've said, bye, off you go, and they're done. I don't want them to swap conventional medicine for, oh, you now have to come and see me for the rest of your life. No. And equally, if I have had clients where if we've worked together for a fair while and I'm like, actually, I don't think this is working, or I'm not able to, I will tell them, because that's also not fair. So, yeah.
And that, actually, what you just said there, I've always felt is quite crucial for people. I mean, years ago, I gave up in 2016, but for 27 years, I was a sports therapist. And my outlook was I wanted to treat them as quickly as possible. You know, I wanted to get a result. Whereas sometimes for some of these modalities, it has almost turned into a long-term client, which is sort of missing the point, isn't it? You want to be able to solve the issues so that they really shouldn't need you anymore. So again, there's sometimes it can be a sort of conflict, but far better to get a recommendation from somebody that goes, wow, you know, I had this wrong and they fixed it and I've not had a problem since. Far better to have that reputation than somebody needing something every single
and that's the bit that some of it I do understand. You know, I've said to you before, both my girls are IVF, and so we did use you know, they wouldn't be here if I hadn't had our acupuncture. So that was a means to an end. But if I had a long-term, you know, touch wood, I'm not going to have, you know, a long-term issue, and I needed to have regular acupuncture treatment to keep me on an even keel, I would, because I could hopefully see the benefits, and it's not just fixing that one problem. They're treating all of you. You know, and it was my husband who said, you know, the second time round, he's like, well, you're not doing the acupuncture. You need to get back on it. And I was like, okay. Because even he had a few sessions, but he could see from his logical point of view that the first time round we did do the acupuncture. The second time I didn't for a little while, because I had a kind of a block. I was thinking, I didn't really think I'd be back here again in these rooms with these memories. But we now are very lucky to have 2 healthy girls. So, yeah, it's right.
Can you share with the audience a little bit about your IVF journey?
Yeah, so it's something I'm quite passionate about speaking about, and I still believe it's quite a taboo subject. People don't really talk about it, or if they are going through a fertility journey, they tend to keep it to themselves and are quite private, which is, you know, absolutely their choice. I'm more open about it because of the awkward questions I got asked by complete strangers in the pharmacy, or friends, family, etc. So as I said, both my parents were born in India. I was born here, and it's very much, you know, right, you finished your education. When are you getting married? When are you having a child? When are you having another one? And it's like, it's none of your business, actually. Especially after I'd had my first. You know, there was a lot of people, oh, don't you want another child, and all this sort of thing. And I just found that quite rude, actually, that it's none of their business. So I know I've shared this with you before, but I guess it will make your audience laugh if I share these are my two stock responses. So the first time when people were sort of saying, don't you want children, this sort of thing, I would smile and keep that pain inside. And it was painful. It was hurting, because we desperately wanted a baby. But the second time I wasn't so nice, and my mother thought I was really rude in my responses. I said, well, they're the ones asking the awkward questions. So yeah, my two stock responses, I would say, if they said, oh, don't you want another child? I'd say, well, shall I phone you next time I'm having sex with my husband? Because that's basically what you're asking me. And the second response was, yes, I would like another child. Would you like to contribute to the IVF fund? And yeah, their faces would drop, and it would kind of be like, oh, like this. And I'm like, well, I'm sorry that I haven't given you the answer that you were expecting, but you asked the question, you poked the bear. So, like I said to you before, it's, when you go to the hairdresser and they say, oh, you're going anywhere nice on holiday? It's like, well, why would I go anywhere horrible on holiday? These inane
People
questions.
talk without actually thinking about what they're saying and the effect it could have on.
Yeah. And it's the same as, if someone said, oh, how's your dad? Oh, he died last week, sort of thing. We don't want to ask these questions, but it's just and this is why I speak about it, is if I can raise the awareness, then it might make people think that actually, I've got friends of mine who don't have any children. Maybe I won't ask them these questions, or I'll wait for them to sort of say, actually, we've chosen not to have children, or we can't, or we're getting a dog, or whatever it is. It's so personal, and yet people feel that they can just barge in there. The number of times when, I had slightly, maybe a, tighter pair of trousers, and I was bloated from my period, and customers would come in, female customers, and point and go, oh, congratulations. And I'm like, oh my God, it's like, you don't say that unless they're on the labour table. And then you go, oh, are you pregnant? I didn't know. You don't. And I'm like, no, just on my period, and I'm fat. It's awful. I would never say that to anyone, anyway. So yeah, it's all of that I want to try and address, and just make people think before they ask people, quite often strangers who they don't know, these things. It's like inside voice, not outside voice, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Let there be a filter. Let there be a filter.
I know.
So you, how did you find your journey?
The IVF journey. Yeah. I mean, it was really hard. We started trying when I was 27, so I wasn't old by conventional standards. I now know from obviously my homeopathic journey what was happening and why I couldn't conceive, but it was really, really hard. Very frustrating. They say the only thing more painful than giving birth, than having a child, is not being able to have one. And I understand that phrase, because I was seeing pregnant women and babies everywhere, and yet every time I had my period, it was either a high, thinking, oh no, my period's here, and it's going through that cycle. Then obviously we did lots of other stuff before doing our first IVF cycle, but the emotional roller coaster, the drugs, how they make you feel emotionally, physically, bursting into tears, feeling all fat and bloated for egg collection, trying to hide that because you're not wanting to be, out there about what stage you're at or what happened, and then you've got that horrible 2-week wait. You pay £6,000 or £7,000, you get a new bathroom. Yay. You pay this. There's no guarantee. There's nothing at the end. I haven't had a new kitchen at the end of this, And yeah, it's so, as I say, I count myself extremely lucky to have 2 healthy girls. There are people who don't have that, and I hope that I never forget that. Again, people have said to me, oh, don't you want a boy? I'm like, why? I said, I have one who goes out to work every day. You know what I mean? It's my husband. And I tell them that. I say, I have 2 healthy girls. Some people don't have that. I'm very grateful for what I have, because it could so easily have not happened. And I know, people where it hasn't happened, or, this sort of thing. And it's, it should be every woman's choice whether she wants to have children or not. And, just because you can doesn't mean that you should, and vice versa as well.
Very true.
So yeah, it was yeah. So yeah, we were very lucky. Our first cycle of actual IVF was my eldest, and then my younger one took 3 cycles.
Wow.
So her name actually means miracle. So
lovely.
I know.
I mean, yes, so that has got to be again, because it when we're looking at the mental, the physical and the spiritual perspective, it's not just what's going on in your body. I mean, stress alone. I mean, we talk so much about stress on this show, and that we know that cortisol has a massive effect on the body. Surely cortisol must have some kind of impact on, whether you're trying or not to get pregnant.
100%. Yeah. I mean, I think I did, I've either recorded the reel or it's coming out soon. I've recorded so many reels on my Instagram. I'm like, wait, where am I? But basically this is Fred, the T-Rex dinosaur. Here we go. Okay. Or the saber-toothed tiger, whatever you want to call it. In evolutionary terms, our hormones, or our stress hormones, or our stress response was designed to work for about 10 minutes to keep us alive and to run away from the saber-toothed tiger, or Fred the T-Rex dinosaur. And it worked brilliantly at keeping us alive for 10 minutes. The problem now is that we have prolonged stress over longer periods of time. So one of the two things that one of the more common things in the stress response is that digestion is switched off. You will often have either diarrhea or have an accident. And for men, it's both ends as well. So just to leave that there, because the body is lightening the load so you can run away faster. Okay. Mm-hmm. And the other thing is it switches off your fertility. It's like, wait, this is not the time to be starting to have babies because we're running away from Fred the T-Rex dinosaur or the saber-toothed tiger. No, we're not having babies. So, which is great for about 10 minutes, but not so great if that happens over a much longer period of time. And this was about more than 10 years ago at the London Excel, the Olympia kind of, these big exhibition centres. Mm-hmm. And they have, shows about, classic cars and boats and whatever. They had one called the Fertility Show. Okay. Now, this was a big wake up call for me. Okay. I'd already had my one of my daughters by this point, but it was a big wake up call to me to say, hang on a minute. We need, as a species, as humans, we need help to reproduce. What is happening to our reproduction? And it's not just the women. It's 40%. Guys, you're on board here. Okay. Male sperm rates have been dropping by 20%, for a very long time. Okay. Again, it's not talked about. It's all assumed that it's all good and it's all fine. And, don't worry, I'm going to have a career first and then I'll have IVF to have babies. It's not a given. It's not a given.
What do you put it down to? What do you put the main issue? Are we going to go there? The main issue of what is going on with fertility? And you're right. I heard about this 20 plus years ago that it was getting worse and worse and worse. Yeah. So what would you put it down to?
I mean, it's modern living in a nutshell. Unfortunately, we are nature. We are what we share 97% of our DNA or more with chimpanzees and bonobo monkeys, and yet we are proposing that we are, we're evolved and we're modern and all of this. It's like, well, all of these issues didn't happen with our ancestors or in hunter-gatherer tribes. We've forgotten our connection with, we're now some people are trying to reconnect with that, walks in nature, grounding, it's all of that stuff that ultimately is affecting us. If you're, working in front of a computer screen and you're eating a sandwich, you're stressed. So your body is saying, well, we don't have time to digest this sandwich. So that then gives you indigestion, or it sets up IBS, or it sets up something else. But it's so easy to then reach for, I'm going to have a Gaviscon for the heartburn. I'm going to reach for a tablet for this. It's all quick fixes. There's no slowing down. There's no, this is what we need to do. I mean, in Japan, if you're preparing to have a baby, they have a whole 2-year program that they do for women. Okay. It's insane. it's amazing, but it's insane. So they will, they'll slow down, they'll do certain types of yoga or Tai Chi, there's certain foods that they'll eat, they'll prioritize all of that to ensure, a quick, safe, natural conception. So why are we not doing that here? Okay.
The Japanese seem to do so much on, they seem to be a little bit more connected, would you say?
Yeah, and I think, yes, it's a very, they have quite a few strict traditions and that sort of thing, but I think certain elements that they do, especially with regards to their health, they're getting a lot of it right. I mean, you could argue, it kind of blows the whole soya thing out of the window, doesn't it? The whole argument of, soya is bad for you. Okay, well, in Japan, they eat loads of it. And yet their incidences of breast cancer or female cancer are very low. Why is that? So you're looking at what type of soy are they eating? Is it organic? What water are they drinking? Organic. Are they going out caring for their neighbours or elderly relatives? Are they then, it's all of that. And people seem to think that, it doesn't matter. Where's the shortcut? It doesn't work like that. It's, you're investing in your health. And quite often I'll describe it as a bank account. So if someone comes to me and they say, my gut's not good, or I say, actually, we need to build up your gut, or make you more robust is a word I use quite often. Okay. Whether that is with regards to immunity or other things, they just need to be more robust. And I said, basically, whether it's your sleep or your gut, you've kind of been in the red for quite a while, and we need to bring you up back to your health balance, if you like, back into the black. And they say, but I've only been doing this for a month and I still feel rubbish. And I'm like, but how many months were you suffering, or how many years were you suffering? You can't it's not a quick fix. I'm sorry. And I'll be the first person to say that homeopathy is not a quick fix. It can act quickly for acute situations, but for the longer term chronic issues, it takes time, And
do you think that's the issue? We've just got into this instant gratification era, aren't we? We just want it all now, otherwise it's not working.
Yes.
And yet anything, it's just like, come from the fitness world. So, somebody comes to do their very first body pump class and they're overweight. Why haven't I lost 2 stone? Well, you've just done your first class. It's not going to happen overnight. Give it, I don't know why the 12-week thing seems to come up, whether it's building a business, whether it's building your body, changing the shape of your body, but maybe it's with, your blood renews in 12 weeks. There's so many things. It's such a timeline. 90 days tends to be quite a good timeline to notice change. Would you agree?
And I try and encourage my patients to stay with me for at least 6 months, because I say, look, we are moving the needle in the positive direction. I want to see small positive changes. It may not be in the areas that you necessarily want and at the time frame that you want, but this is your body. It's a self-healing organism. If you have a cut, you don't have to stare at it and think and go, I've got to heal this cut now. You don't sit there for 5 minutes and go, right, I've got to heal this cut. Your body does it. If it has the nutrients and the resources to do so, it will heal that cut. And that's what I notice with my patients, is that they are generally more robust, less susceptible, and happier and healthier because they're a homeopathic patient. And that is sometimes hard to put into words because people experience it in different ways. But, one of my clients who had urinary tract infections for every month for 18 months, on day 3 of her period, thanks very much, Mother Nature, she was not a happy bunny. She came to see me. She'd been through the conventional medicine, lots of antibiotics, this and that. And the next stage was going to be more intrusive, invasive tests, which she didn't really want, which is, understandable. She came to see me, I think this was July 2020 now, so on Zoom. And since then, we worked for about, I think, 8 or 9 months. She didn't have a urinary tract infection in that time once. Not only that, she then said there was an odd sensation. She was very, very colourful in her language. She said, it feels all normal down there now, because before it didn't. It was an odd sensation. So to me, yes, she wasn't suffering with infections, but why is this sensation there? We still need to keep going. There's something going on. So we got to a point where I was seeing her every 2 months. She never needed to take homeopathic medicine for the urinary tract infection because they never came back. And she said it was also the mental relief of, previously she would get sort of like a Thursday or a Friday and she'd start to get the sensation, oh God, I need to phone the doctor. Can I get an appointment? Can I get antibiotics for the weekend? Blah, 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 all of that. She said it's all just gone. She said, I don't have to worry about that. I said,
see, there you go. It all feeds each other. So again, the stress or worry, getting anxious of it's all having a knock-on effect. And where does it end? And then it's chicken and egg, and it's just getting a total mess. So for anybody that's listening, if they've never looked at homeopathy as an option, and they might have something that's chronic and they know that things haven't been working, how would they get in touch with you, Neela?
So the best way is probably either Instagram or my website. So my website is homeopathicheharmony.co.uk. I'm also under the same handle on Instagram, so homeopathic_harmony. I'm quite active on there. I am on LinkedIn, but I'm not very active on there. But that's as Neela Prabhu, so Prabhu. So yeah, just to get in touch with me. But yeah, on my website you can book the free half-an-hour call with me to have a chat. There's a lot of information on my website about what is homeopathy, videos of me explaining that, testimonials, case studies, and obviously some of the products that I sell as well, which again are a way of people experiencing it without necessarily having a one-to-one with me. So I've got online courses and products as well. So
awesome.
Physical products, I should say.
Awesome. And so it's been a long time since I think I first went and saw a homeopath for myself, other than being a child. Oh my goodness. Yeah, my eldest is 22, so we're going beyond before then. So I was always told. So quite often you would get told that you have like your sort of go-to remedy.
Your constitutional. So your homeopathic personality is what I call it. But yeah, it's your constitutional remedy. Yeah. And actually on my
a bit about that.
Yeah. So on my Instagram, if you look under my IGTVs, I've done 12 of the most common homeopathic personality types. So it's kind of like you can go on and watch and go, oh, is that me? Oh, no, that's not me, that sort of thing. And this is part of my consultation when I ask people what I call the odd questions of, what makes you cry, or, what are your favorite foods, or what makes you angry, or how do you feel about thunderstorms? And they're going, what the hell has this got to do with my eczema? This sort of thing. But it is crucial. So my basic book, which is, quite thick, is about 3 or 4 inches thick, has got 1,400 remedies in there, and that's just scratching the surface. Yeah. So I need to narrow that down to pick for you the best bespoke remedy. So I'll give you an example. My constitutional remedy is sepia, which is cuttlefish ink. So it's a cephalopod, so it's similar to an octopus where they put ink out, and it's the sepia is the ink. So the sepia coloured photos, the brownish colour, that's what they would use as colourant. So it's an ink, okay? But the mental, emotional picture, or the caricature, I should say, picture of sepia is your classic overworked mother, okay? So if you imagine in your head a woman in a business suit who's crying, she's got a baby on one hip, she's got the phone is crooked between her ear and her shoulder on the other side. One of her hands is stirring dinner and she's got a toddler on her leg. Okay. We've all been there. Okay. We can all picture that scene and go, bloody hell, she's dealing with a lot. And all she wants to do is go and lie in a cold, dark room and say, just leave me the hell alone. That is your classic sepia. Sepia is a fantastic female remedy for, any menstrual issues, whether that's during menstruation or at menopause. It's absolutely wonderful. If I could prescribe that for myself every single month, I would, but I know that's not necessarily what I need every month. But yeah, the most common constitutional remedy that I give out to 70 to 80% of my clients is Napmure. So Napmure is sea salt, okay, and it's what we call a doctrine of signatures. So what that means is we're back to the belladonna, that we're using like cures like. So Napmure is sea salt. So again, a caricature picture of a Napmure is Napmures are people who get shit done. Okay, it's not OCD, it's CDO, and if you know, it's in alphabetical order. And this is how, very ordered, organized people can be a bit martyrish, no, I'll do it. No, that's fine. I'll do it. Prefer to cry alone. If someone finds them crying and they go to give them a hug, they'll dry their tears and go, no, I'm okay. It's all fine. They tend to be slightly constipated. They can't urinate in public if they feel that someone is looking or if they can see or hear them. And it's all about water balance as well because of the sea salt. So they can suffer with edema. Great one for eczema. It's a huge grief remedy. So it's all related to lung energy in Chinese medicine. And they tend to be very thirsty people and they like salty food. So things like crisps and salted nuts, but they actually hate slimy food. So things like aubergines and raw tomatoes. And that's in the older books, it says oysters, but obviously we all walk around having oysters every day, don't we? And in the words of Elsa, I'm back to Frozen again, they need to let it go. Okay, literally. So even with their watchword is control. They need to be in control and they have a big fear of being out of control. So even with their bowels, they're holding on and that's why they're slightly constipated. Okay.
Wow.
So they can be eating all the fiber in the world, but unless you're dealing with the emotional side, yeah. So it's one of my more common prescriptions. And when I describe that to people, they're like, oh my God, that's so me. How did you know that? And I'm like, I live in the constitutional. So yeah.
Oh wow! Yeah. Well, I'm a Phossie. So what's a phosphorus?
Oh, you're a phosphorus. Okay, everyone loves a phosphorus. So phosphorus are a bit like a bubbly bottle of champagne. Okay, yeah. So they're very entertaining. They're like, this, as a child, they'll be singing, dancing. Look at me, look at me. They need to be centre of attention. All of this, which is great. No. But the problem is they give their energy away like a bottle of fizzy champagne, and then suddenly it's flat, and they're like, that's it. They've crashed out. They're also very, very sensitive. So as a child, you might find they're the ones going, oh, the seams on the socks, mummy, I don't like those socks, or that jumper feels scratchy, all that kind of, and the mum's going, oh, for God's sake, it's a jumper, get over it. But any external stimuli, so loud noises, bright lights, all of that can be not great for a phosphorus because they're very, very sensitive. Phosphorus also, again, not keen on thunderstorms for a similar reason. But they are very thirsty. They love cold things. So ice cream, ice cubes, all of that sort of thing. And they have a tendency towards nosebleeds as well. Very, very quickly, they can have a nosebleed. So.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. A few things there, but it's
not all of them.
It's just so interesting. But it's always been, and it's always worked.
Your remedy. Yeah. Yeah.
It's always worked.
Yeah. And people always ask me, is there a better remedy? And I'm like, well, they're all just different and each has a healthy and an unhealthy side. So Pulsatilla is another common one that I give. And some of the elements of Pulsatilla are not always desirable traits, but they are a healthy Pulsatilla. So Pulsatilla is a windflower. It grows in a sandy soil. So they like wind. They're much better outside with the breeze. They hate hot, stuffy rooms. They will cry at the drop of a hat. They'll cry because they're happy. They'll cry because they're sad. They want comfort. Oh, they're there. Oh, so very much a clingy child. They can be very sweet, but they can be very manipulative as well. We tend to call it Pulsatilla the Hun. Their discharges are very bland and yellowy, greeny, thick kind of snot, that sort of thing. They're not very thirsty at all. And they love buttery foods like pastries and carbonara and, if they could eat a whole chunk of butter, and I've had clients who are Pulsatilla who would do that, children. And they have wandering pains. So they'll have a pain here and then it'll move, or they'll have a fever and then the next minute it's gone. And you're like, what? Changeable symptoms. That's your Pulsatilla. But again, a healthy Pulsatilla, they're very indecisive. So you might say, do you want the red t-shirt or the blue t-shirt? And they go, I don't know, mummy. So you just want them to make a decision, but actually in a healthy Pulsatilla state, that is actually natural for them. So the attribute may not be very helpful, but it is healthy for a Pulsatilla. So they may be not drinking so much water. That is a healthy Pulsatilla. They're not very thirsty.
It absolutely fascinating.
I know.
It makes so much sense because we are so different. So it would make sense that there's not going to be one thing that fixes everything.
Yeah, it's basically putting conventional medicine on its head that we are not robots. Even identical twins have different gut biomes. Okay, They have the same genes, but they have different gut biomes. Why is that? Because we're all individual. We all have our own choices about, foods or clothing or whatever it is. And that's okay because we're all different. But then why should our medicine be the same?
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
and what you said right at the beginning, actually, when you said about like belladonna, for instance, yeah, obviously it's a poison, but if you look at it, well, what's an anesthetic? What's any conventional? They are all poison.
Well, they are all drugs. Yeah, absolutely. And you can look back and look at the medieval times of leeches and bloodletting and all of that, which are all horrible treatments. Actually, when you look at some of the conventional medicine now, has it really moved on, or have we just got better at labeling the side effects? Because you've got chemotherapy, you've got radiotherapy, you've got even long-term pain relief comes with side effects, the constipation that I mentioned. But actually, even longer term than that, if you've got a chronic MS, chronic back pain, you name it, there's a whole long list of chronic conditions. Who are the people who are suffering with cirrhosis of the liver at the latter stages, of their lives? Is it the alcoholics, or is it the people who've been on long-term medication? Okay, because the liver is still clearing those toxins, those drugs, and this is you have to look at it as a whole. You can't just say, so some of these treatments, they're not nice. We all know people, unfortunately, who've been through chemo or radiotherapy. They're horrible treatments. I'm not suggesting that you should just leave them to die of cancer, but we think we're more modern, but actually some of the treatments are really, some of the drugs are also really horrible, and
really
the side effects as well.
It makes no sense to treat, to become healthy, pump your body full of poisons and toxins, whereas the opposite is really true with the homeopathy, because again, dosage and the dilution. And I love the idea. I love the fact that it is about the way it's treating you. It's the energy that is trapped in the water. It's the energy of the thing. Just because we can't physically see it doesn't mean it's not there. Like you say, energy cannot be created or destroyed. It's just been changed. It's just gone on to another level.
Exactly.
And all the energy that's around throughout even this, there's so much, just because we can't see it with our eyes, we can't touch it with our hands.
And it's also been going for, homeopathy's only been going for sort of, a couple of hundred years. So it's kind of a baby in the alternative world. But if you look at Chinese medicine and acupuncture, you look at Ayurvedic medicine in India, you look at, any paradigm that's been going for thousands of years, again, why would people still be using it? Is it a coincidence that our major endocrine organs and glands are in line with our 7 main chakra points? Why is that? It's not a coincidence. It's just that this knowledge is being lost that would be passed from, grandmother to mother to daughter of, if your child's got this, use this herb and do it in a poultice. And, when I was a child, my grandmother lived with us. She passed when she was 94, and I'm sure she's creating merry hell down there because, she was a cantankerous old bitch when she was alive. I can say that because I lived with her. But we would get treated with traditional Indian remedies of when she grew up with those and was like, the kids are ill, we're going to do this. We didn't have cowpole and this sort of thing. And okay, we might have thought it was strange at the time, but we're all still alive. We're all still here and healthy. And, so yeah.
And it just shows that it's not just one thing that can that can fix. There could be all sorts of things. So somebody, there's something in everything. And I love the fact that, well, thank goodness it is still allowed even to keep going, because even the way they've sort of tried for this, it has been wrong because of the way they've tested it. But so hopefully to the audience listening in, if you've never got involved or never tried it, definitely something to look at. I mean, I think the only thing that people do possibly know about is arnica, and I suppose that's because you can see it. The bruise is there, and then it's not. So it's so proof. So thank you, Neela, so much for your time today. It's been wonderful to speak to you. And actually, I think I might even get my daughter to come and see you, because she's, I think, the only one who hasn't been to a homeopath. So thank you for your time, and to the
Oh, you're
listeners,
welcome.
I will be back next week with a coffee with Karen. Bye for now.
Welcome to the Coffee with Karen podcast, a weekly chat show discussing everything from holistic health to current affairs from a mental, physical and spiritual perspective. Get your weekly cup of positivity with a sprinkling of woo-woo.